Hello everyone, welcome to our latest Meet the Employer event. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Rele, sounds like Pele but with an R, and today we'll be talking about could engineering and construction jobs be for you? Come and work on the biggest infrastructure project in Europe and help shape the future of the UK with HS2, one of our unlimited employers. So I'd like to welcome Maria, Ambrose, Richard, Cedric, and Julianne from HS2. I'll come to you one by one, and please can you introduce yourself, your role, and why you're here today. Let's start with Maria.
Hello, can you hear me? Just making sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Maria Tata. I am the Senior Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager at HS2, and my role is to essentially look after the inclusion experience of the employees at HS2 from the moment they're hired to the moment they leave. And I am severely deaf. I use a hearing aid on my right side, sorry, on my left side, which is where I'm severely deaf, but I don't wear a hearing aid on this side because I'm profoundly deaf. So I communicate with a mixture of lip reading, captioning, and I'm learning sign language as well, which I'm really proud of. So this is me. I just wanted to say that Cedric had not been able to join us, but over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Maria. So hi, my name is Richard Winter. I'm an education manager at HS2. So my work focuses on how we work with young people to get them excited about working on our project. But I wanted to talk to you today because it's also a big part of our values at HS2 that we do this work. And the work we do with young people is also a way that our colleagues can develop their skills for their own benefits as well. I'll hand over to you, Ambrose.
Well, thanks, Richard. Good morning, everyone. So my name's Ambrose Quashi. I work with Richard and Maria at HS2 Limited. My role is what's called a skills manager. So my responsibility is to work with our supply chain and some of our key stakeholders to create pathways into employment for people from diverse groups and local communities, including people with disabilities and health conditions.
Brilliant.
So to Julianne next. Yes.
Hi, I'm Julianne Poynton. I'm a lead utility land rights manager here at HS2 in our land and property department. I'm also a health and wellbeing champion, and I also am an ally of hidden disabilities, everything in the workplace. I work with a disability and I'm also an ally. Part of my role is acquiring the land rights along the route and managing a team. And obviously disability and wellness is what I'm passionate about, and ensuring that people get the best out of themselves working at HS2, disability or not.
Fantastic. Okay then, so let's get started with today's presentation. So over to you, Ambrose.
Cool, thank you very much, Rele. Okay, so to start off by giving a bit of context in terms of the HS2 programme. So this slide shows a route map in terms of the railway line that we are building. So we start in London and then go through to Birmingham, and that's called phase 1 of the HS2 programme. From Birmingham, we go to Crewe, which is called phase 2A. And then we've got phase 2B, which takes us from Crewe to Manchester, and then there'll be connectivity through to Leeds. In terms of the scale of the project, we are talking about this being the largest infrastructure project across Europe currently. And as part of that, we are going to be doing things such as digging 64 miles worth of tunnels from London to Birmingham, and also building 4 new train stations, 2 in London and 2 in the West Midlands. And the pictures you can see on this slide just gives you a flavour of some of the things we are doing currently across the programme, including work across our construction sites, work we're doing in relation to the environment, and also archaeology. This slide shows you the 7 strategic goals across the whole HS2 project. And you can see at the bottom that one of those goals is skills and employment, which has got a close link to equalities, diversity and inclusion. It's really important for us that in having a workforce that can help us to build HS2, that we do it in a way that benefits local communities and opens up opportunities to people from diverse groups. And the work that myself, Maria, Rich and others do is very much focused on delivering against this strategic goal. This slide gives you a sense of the workforce requirements across the HS2 programme. We forecast that at the peak construction period of the whole programme, we're going to need at least 34,000 people. So that's building the railway line from London through to Manchester and Leeds. And as part of that, we want to create at least 2,000 new apprenticeships. So there's going to be a huge number of opportunities for people across the country. And we're really keen, as I said earlier, to make sure those opportunities are accessed as far as possible by people from local communities and diverse groups. We've got lots of opportunities, but we've got a broad range of those opportunities as well. So this slide gives you a sense of the broad range of roles that we've got across the project. So yes, there are opportunities across our construction sites, including in engineering, but also we've got office-based roles that might be focused on HR or finance or IT. Then with IT, we're using modern technologies such as virtual reality to help design the railway line too. And we've got a big focus on an environment in terms of making sure we support the government's commitments around being net zero carbon by 2050. And what we did in 2018 to really set out how we aim to connect people from certain communities and groups to HS2 employment opportunities is publish a strategy, which we call the Skills, Employment and Education Strategy, or C strategy for short. And that strategy's got 4 key priorities. So the first is around making sure that we've got a skilled workforce to help us deliver the HS2 programme, but doing it in a way that makes sure we leave behind a legacy, not just for the transport infrastructure sector, but also the wider UK economy. The second priority is around our supply chain. So myself, Maria, Rich and Julianne, we work for HS2 Limited. So we are the client, the company owned by the government, responsible for making sure that the HS2 programme is delivered. But we've got a complex and broad range of supply chain partners that deliver certain aspects of the programme, whether that be digging the 64 miles worth of tunnels or building the 4 new train stations. And therefore, it's really important for us to make sure that all of these companies that are helping us to build HS2 deliver what they're meant to in a way that speaks to our strategic goals. So in relation to skills, employment and education, all of our supply chain partners have to deliver certain what we call outputs and activities. And they will include things such as creating apprenticeships, offering opportunities to people not currently in work, and sustainable opportunities at that, because these are people that will need to be in employment for at least 26 weeks before a contractor will be able to count that activity towards their contractual requirements. The requirements also cover things such as creating work placements, the pathway into paid employment, working with schools, which we'll talk to you about in a bit, working with FE colleges, and also doing work to upskill the existing workforce. The next priority is around working in partnership. So if we want to see, as we do, certain groups of people better represented across our workforce, we know that we haven't got all the answers in terms of making that happen. When it comes to engaging with people from those groups, making sure we're creating the right pathways into employment for those groups of people, and then importantly, ensuring that those people can progress in the workplace. So it's really important in relation to this that we work with key partners, including Even Break, to make sure that we can have that better represented workforce. And the third priority, the last priority, sorry, is around education and the work we're doing with young people. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Richard to talk you through that particular priority area.
Thank you, Ambrose. Yes, so HS2 have a well-established education programme. And the reason we do this work is because we know that the stereotypes and young ideas that young people develop about what type of job is right for a person like them, these ideas develop at quite an early age. So for HS2 to develop a diverse workforce and a sort of talent pipeline that's more diverse, we have to start that work at an early age. And also, as I mentioned earlier, as well as helping the young people that take part in these programs, taking part in this work for our volunteers also helps them, because by going to schools and working with young people, it's a way to develop your own skills in things like communication and leadership. Now, the slide here shows you a few examples of some of the things that we do in schools. We have STEM workshops where young people get hands-on building and making and designing things. We support the careers work that schools do, things like mock interviews and speed networking events. And we also have opportunities for young people to experience the workplace, coming in for office visits and work experience. And then finally, we have resources online that teachers can use to do their own lessons on HS2. I want to give you a particular example though, which takes us on to the next slide. This is a work experience program that we developed with Braidwood School for the Deaf. And we've run this with 6 different schools across Birmingham that are all schools for young people with a special educational need or disability. And in the photograph on the slide, you can see the group from Braidwood School who came in for their mock interviews as part of their program. The reason we developed this program is we wanted to give these young people a chance to visit different workplaces, to meet people working in different jobs, and to develop their skills by completing a real work project. But also we wanted to give them a voice, because they are the people who are going to be using our railway in the future. And we wanted to understand their experience of using public transport and their ideas for improving it. This program also gives HS2 employees the opportunity to gain experience and confidence in inclusive practice when working with people who have a disability. And to give you a bit more information about the project that young people did, that's on the next slide. Thanks, Ambrose. So we set the young people a project where we asked them to come up with ideas to make our stations and trains more accessible. We wanted to involve them and give them a voice in our inclusive design. The first stage was we asked them to do research by talking to other students at their school and surveying them. They then came to our office to work with our volunteers to come up with innovation ideas to kind of address those issues that they'd identified in their research. Then back at school, they turned those ideas into models and drawings. And then finally, our staff, our volunteers went into the school to hear presentations about their design ideas. And with Braidwood School, this has become a really great relationship. We're helping them and they're also helping us. Braidwood have done a deaf awareness session for our staff. They've given us a British Sign Language taster session. And also, by doing mock interviews with us, our staff have learned more about how to interview with interpreters and to do that properly and do that respectfully. The next couple of slides give you a bit of information about the kind of messaging we give to young people, but this messaging is also really relevant to you on the call as well. Ambrose has already mentioned the headline number, 34,000 people. That's how many people we'll need at peak to build HS2. And this slide shows you the 2 photographs to really emphasize the different types of work. These are photographs of our apprentices. On the left-hand side, you've got our apprentices in the office, because a lot of our jobs, especially HS2 Limited, are in the office. On the right-hand side, you've got our apprentices on site in their high-vis orange jackets, because there is really important work going on site. And a lot of the jobs in the supply chain are those jobs on site. And the next thing I wanted to do was tell you about some of the variety of jobs. The first slide talks about shortage roles. So I've got some pictures of the roles where we've identified we're going to have a gap and won't have enough people to work in these jobs unless we do particular schemes and outreach and promotion to try and raise awareness. We have plant operatives, the people who are driving the diggers and the cranes and the big machinery. Scaffolders. Scaffolders, very important in any building work. And then we have some very specialist roles like tunnelling operatives. We are building tens, probably hundreds of miles of tunnels across our line of routes, and we need specialist people who know how to do that work. And then finally, steel fixers and erectors. That's another particular shortage role. And I think it's always worth looking at labour market information, because you know if there's a shortage role, that's the kind of role where there's going to be training opportunities and a good chance to negotiate a good salary as well, because there are more jobs than there are people to fill them. I also wanted to talk about some of the surprising roles though, because people might think about trains and think about train drivers. They might think about construction and think about the people driving the diggers. But these are some of the more surprising roles you perhaps wouldn't expect on HS2. We have lots of ecologists working for us, helping to relocate species that need protection, or helping to plant new trees and new habitats. At one point, I think we had pretty much all of the archaeologists in the country working for us, because if you're going through sites of historical interest, you have to make sure they're respectfully excavated before you do any construction work. And then there are some more high-tech roles as well. Ambrose mentioned virtual reality earlier on in the presentation, and our BIM technicians, business information modeling, they create 3D models of our structures that have all the kind of information about how it's built and how it's maintained embedded in that 3D model. And finally, we have cybersecurity. A high-profile project like HS2 will always have people who want to be kind of, getting into our information and breaking into our systems. So having well-qualified cybersecurity analysts is very important for us. I think I am handing over to Maria now. Is that right?
No,
oh, no, back to
over
Ambrose.
me,
Sorry, back to Ambrose.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Richard. Okay, so we've mentioned already about the number of roles that we're going to have in terms of our workforce requirements, the peak construction period to 34,000 at a minimum. And what we did last year to try to create pathways into those roles for certain groups of people at scale is create what we call the HS2 Job Brokerage Model. And the model's got two key components to it. The first component is a jobs board that sits on the HS2 website, and that brings together vacancies from across our supply chain. Because up until the point that the jobs board was in place, you'd have to go on the individual websites of our supply chain partners to be able to get a sense of what opportunities were available. And what we've now done is bring those opportunities together in one place to give people greater visibility of what opportunities are available at any one point in time. And the second component of the model really goes back to what I said earlier about the importance of working in partnership and our knowledge that we can't do all of this on our own. So we've set up a network of what we call job brokerage partners, so organizations that we feel have got the requisite experience and skills to be able to help us to engage with certain groups of people, create the right pathways into employment, and also going back to what I said earlier, ensure that there's opportunities for progression and sustainability. So in terms of our job brokerage partners, to give you a sense of who they are, we've got the Department for Work and Pensions, so using their network of job centres across the country. And then we've got local authority partners, particularly those that are directly on the HS2 line of route. So local authorities such as Camden Council, Brent Council in London, in the West Midlands, Birmingham City Council, Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council, sorry. So organisations that run skills and employment services for their local communities, and we can align that support that's available to those communities with HS2 employment opportunities. Since the HS2 Jobs Board was launched, over 3,000 jobs have been advertised, and that's steadily increasing. And in terms of outcomes, the job brokerage model has helped delivery of over 950 new apprenticeship starts across the whole HS2 programme, and over 2,200 people previously out of work have been able to secure employment lasting for at least 26 weeks. So that's it from me in terms of giving you that overview, and also from Rich in terms of the HS2 education programme. I'm now going to hand over to Maria to give you an overview of the things that we're doing at HS2 Limited as an employer.
Thank you very much, Ambrose. So, as you have seen, as you have heard from Ambrose and Richard, there are so many jobs available on HS2, and then these are divided in the work for our supply chain, which you can still access from our HS2 Jobs and Skills website. So when we say careers with HS2, you can choose as to whether you are more interested in office-based jobs, a hybrid of them, or working on site, mostly with our supply chain. And so all of these vacancies are available on the same job page, which makes it a bit easier to find. When it comes to applying for jobs, we have a whole section all about how to get the best chance to be successful at applying for jobs at HS2. This is very important. I really want you to hear and receive this information because it will give you the best chance to be successful. So starting from, for example, from applying for a job, it is incredibly easy because all you have to do is send in your CV, your curriculum vitae, and you don't have to go through a job application. You send in your CV, and you can do so just by uploading it on the site. On the help with your application page, which we can share later on, there's also lots of tips and advice about how to make your CV look really good, really attractive. So lots of employment skills in there. And then additionally, there are lots of tips about how to perform best during your interview. So for example, that's really good advice because often when we are interviewing, I think everybody has been through that moment of being interviewed, that you feel a little bit nervous and a little bit anxious. And so we have lots of guidance in there on how to perform at your best. And one of the best guidance is to use the STAR format. So when you are asked at an interview to talk about some of the experience you've had, you can use the STAR acronym. So STAR is an acronym and it stands for S, which is the situation. You describe, you give a context of your experience. T is for task. What was the requirement? What was asked of you? A is for action. What action did you take to solve the problem, to address the issue? And then R is for result. And that really showcases your outcomes. This is very important because at HS2, we have we try to be really fair in the way that we assess our candidates. We don't score people against each other. We just give them an individual score in relation to how they performed individually. We're not cross-checking people. And so answering questions really well using the STAR format is a really useful way to make sure you get everything you want to say across so that you get the best score. So this is really important because it gives you the best chance. So I'll give you a personal example. When I applied for my own role, I was scored. And then when I was offered my job, the recruitment partner said to me, Maria, we would like to offer you the position, not because we like you, but because you score the highest. So of course I was going to say, I want people to like me too. But it was just about demonstrating that it was a fair process, that we tried to control any possible bias, and that we really are trying to be as fair as possible. So this is just some of the ideas, some of the ideas on how to present yourself, how to do best in interviews. It's all on the website under the section Help with your application. Now, let me tell you a little bit about, I'll go into the next slides and I'll talk you through some of the ways in which we make sure that we are inclusive for people who have a disability at HS2. So last year, we launched our accessibility strategy to accompany our new accessibility policy with a working group and a pledge. And that's really important because it basically makes the premise that accessibility is something that you need to have the basics right, and then you need to always keep improving. always keep up to date. And so it's something to be worked on. It's not a start and an end process, it's continuous. We also have accredited training on inclusive recruitment for hiring managers and recruiter. So what does that mean? It means that when you meet someone at an interview at HS2, the people on the interview panel would have had equality, diversity, and inclusion training specifically for hiring. So how to check in your bias, how to make sure you're asking the questions in a fair way, and you're scoring candidates in a fair way, and so on. So this gives people greater reassurance that you are going to get a fair chance at your interview, and that you are not being judged on, you know, your disability, what you look like, what you're wearing. It does not matter. We score people on the quality of their answers alone. We also make sure that our sites are inclusive, you know, up to AAA, accessible and inclusive standards. We are about to undergo a new audit. It is important to do this every year, as website pages change all the time. And so we must check that they are accessible for people using screen readers, for example, such as people with vision impairment or dyslexia. We also made sure that when we invite people for an interview or they're going through the process, they can communicate any access requirement during the process. We make sure that we implement any adjustments ahead of the interview. And then when you start working with us, you complete a clear talent profile that basically details everything that you might need to be able to work to the best of your ability. And it's a really interesting process, because sometimes it can ask questions about things that you haven't thought of before. And so this is really important, because it gives you the reassurance that your needs are going to be met from day one of starting work at HS2. We also offer, depending on the vacancies, especially when we are recruiting many people, we use so-called blind auditioning or skill-based only auditioning for roles. And what that means is that you are not scored, you are not judged on your experience or where you went to school, but you are shortlisted on the basis of your ability to do the task. So I'll give you a quick example. Instead of just simply looking at where my personal example is, instead of people asking me, Maria, you know, you sound foreign, you are Italian, where did you go to school? Where did you get your degree? Or what kind of experience do you have? Or you're a mother, you have a gap in your CV. So instead of asking these questions, which are very off-putting and really can create discrimination for people simply, in the blind auditioning process, you are simply given a task. So I was requested to give my answer on to how would I solve a problem. And I had 2 whole days to do that. And they're really interesting tasks that people cannot simply Google. You just have to really think creatively and use your own answer. And so on the basis of 2 tasks, I find myself being shortlisted for the role, and nobody even asked about where I was from, my education, or any gaps in my career. And so that is so important, because disabled people sometimes might have gaps in their career because of, you know, reasons related to disability, or they might have gaps in education. And so it's really important that we try to bring those candidates in based on their abilities and know whether they went to Oxford or Cambridge, for example. So that's really important. We also have leadership discovery and management programs with EDI embedded. What does that mean? That means that we train our managers to be aware of equality, diversity, and inclusion. And we train them in such a way that we use real life, real workplace case scenarios where we train them in understanding that teams can have different needs that sometimes are conflicting. And so it's important that our managers are upskilled in the way that they manage their teams and that they are aware of the different requirements that people might have. You could have a team member who is a parent. You could have a team member who has a disability. Each one will bring their own unique skills, but also it takes careful management to make sure that everyone has what they need to work to the best of their ability. So that means offering flexible working hours, for example. So that's really important. And it's important that our managers are trained up in getting the best of our people. We also have a reverse mentoring program. So this means that our senior leadership team is paired up with volunteers from across the organization to, to learn from them. And so if you fancy, getting an insight on what it's like to work at the top, and also bring your own lived experience of being a diverse candidate, you can apply for the program. And so it is a very successful program because it basically exposes the senior leadership to a range of diversity and skills that they will not ordinarily have. Because unfortunately, at the top, in many organizations, in many industries, the higher you go in the hierarchy, the less diverse it is. So while we're working towards that, it's really important that we pair people up so that people learn from each other and learn from different kinds of people to themselves. And then finally, we have a clear assured accreditation program that is a very, very exacting standards of equality, diversity, and inclusion. And we do this because we need an independent check. We cannot just say, oh, we do really well here. We want to have an independent organization checking in on us to make sure that we actually do what we say we do. And the accreditation is a very tough project. We are undergoing an audit at the moment right now, actually. And so we really have to demonstrate and evidence how we embed equality and inclusion in everything we do. And then finally, we offer development opportunities for all employees. HS2 sometimes, HS2 Limited, it is sometimes a bit hard to progress because we are not a normal workplace like a bank, for example, or local authority, and so on. It is a project. So the project changes all the time depending on how much progress we've achieved. And so it is really hard sometimes to develop your career and progress because sometimes there is no natural progress for your role. So the way we try to do this, to manage this, is to, sometimes we cannot promote people, but one thing we do for our employees is to try and develop them and offer them more learning opportunity, more self-development opportunities that they can use for themselves. So I think that is it. And I think what I would like to do, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Julianne, who will tell you about our fantastic Together Network, which is our disabled colleagues network. Over to you, Julianne.
Thanks, Maria, and beautifully put as well. You summed that up really nicely, and I think hopefully what I'm going to do now is put some colour on working at HS2 as a disabled person with a hidden disability, and also as an ally So my name is Julianne Poynton. I work in the Land and Property Department as a lead utility land right manager. What does that mean? It means that I acquire all the land acquisition with my team along the route for utility land rights. In 2018, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening and life-limiting condition known as Addison disease, otherwise known as adrenal insufficiency. That means I don't make enough of the life-saving hormone cortisol, which is our stressor response and can, when it goes too low, put you in a debilitating position in a crisis known as an Addison crisis. Coming into HS2 after a successful career previously, but then entering as technically a disabled person with an illness and feeling that, well, I won't be good enough no more. Skills and the career I've had in the past will now be no longer. And after probably a really bad experience as well, not long after diagnosis as well in a workplace, was really frightening. But I couldn't have been further from the truth. Basically, HS2, it promotes, it doesn't just say equality, diversity and inclusion, it actively is, it promotes, it lives, it breathes. And I'm a living example of that. I feel what it's done for me is give back me the confidence to be able to perform at my optimum, and working closely with the Together network and also being a wellbeing lead has also given me the platform to say, this isn't just a thing we say, this isn't a nice thing to do, this is our reality. And also HS2 is being, for me, really cathartic, empowering, liberating, and it's also worked with my disability, albeit a hidden disability, to make any reasonable adjustments that I've required in order to be able to perform at my optimum. With doing this also, I like to fly the flag. I can't imagine anyone else sat there thinking like I thought, nearly 3 years ago. I would have written myself off and could technically now be unemployed and just not fulfilling my potential. I am a hiring manager. I do lead a very successful team, and I firmly believe the only way I've been able to stay in employment is because I work for HS2. They are everything with an EDI employer would embody. They don't just say it, they actively do it. As I say, they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. And for me, being in the Together network with like-minded colleagues that have a disability and also being an ally and flying the flag has been able to give me that platform with my other colleagues to say, we are good enough and we're performing and we are enabled to fulfill our potential. And for me to be able to say 3 years on, my name's Julianne Poynton, I have Addison's disease, I do have a hidden disability, but also I'm not defined by that. I'm Julianne Poynton, lead utility land rights manager at HS2, and my career is going from strength to strength, and I'm also being able to promote that to others in the workplace and upcoming staff and new members that come to HS2. So the one takeaway I would say is, don't doubt yourself, don't be defined by your disability. You can do this. You just have to have the right employer, the right platform, and you won't be defined by anything but coming into HS2, being the best version of yourself and going from strength to strength. Thank you.
Fantastic. I feel like giving you a round of applause. That is an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us, Julianne. I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of our audience, and it shows that HS2 are supporting anyone with any disabilities, whether visible or invisible disability, HS2, and also you have a wide variety of roles. The recruitment process is easy, they've tried to remove as many barriers as possible, things like that. Thank you very much to Maria as well, and for Ambrose, and to Richard as well for letting us know all this useful information about HS2. If you do want to check out the latest vacancies from HS2, then go to their profile page on Even Break's website to apply. Please, Toby, could you put HS2's Even Break profile page link in the chat box? Okay, so now I think it's time for our Q&A session. So we're just going to answer some questions in the Q&A box. I can see one actually in the chat box. I don't know if this, I don't know if anyone would be happy to answer this. They said possibly for Ambrose first, but any one of you can answer this. Being focused on skills and the pipelines in for diverse candidates. I'm visually impaired and would be very interested to learn where my skills could be matched with opportunities in HS2. Could you signpost me to anywhere or any contact where I could perhaps follow up on this? Who would like
I'm
to
happy to
take
take that, Relay. I'm happy to take it. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it goes back to what you just said about the HS2 profile page on the Even Break website. So that will certainly give you information about opportunities that are available. We can also provide information about our job brokerage partners if additional support is needed to apply for vacancies.
Okay, thank you for that. Do you have, I remember we were discussing earlier on, do you have any sort of like email address or anything like that that you could share with anyone for any queries or anything of that nature?
So yes, you can write to ediqueries@hs2.org.uk, and we can type it in the chat and to make sure that people understand how it's spelled. And you can, write directly to us to ask further information about the application process, any signposting that you need. And also with regards to the question that was asked earlier, definitely one of the advantages of applying through the website is that you can upload your CV and it's valid for multiple vacancies. You can also set up alerts. So if you're interested in specific jobs, you can check an alert for the type of vacancy and you will get alerts as soon as they come up. So that is also a useful feature to know about.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Maria. And another question here is, does HS2 have any legal jobs available?
We do have a legal department at HS2. The vacancies will generally be advertised in the website. So if you can't find anything right now, you can always save the search and set up alerts for that type of vacancy. And as soon as a vacancy is available, you will be immediately automatically sent an email.
I can actually vouch for that as well as with being a hiring manager. So when I've had a lot of acquisition, land right and property people that I require, my first line is basically with our HR and recruiting team to say, can you scour through and all the keywords with regarding land and property acquisitions, and we do pull from that first. So it isn't you just go into a black hole and forgotten about. We really do use that.
Brilliant. And also to say to anyone listening, you can also access one-to-one support from the Even Break Career Hive. So please do reach out to us directly. If Toby could help us to put the Career Hive link in the chat as well, where you can go for any help you need with interview skills, CV skills, any signposting and things like that. I'm just having a look here. Someone says, have found this session extremely informative and positive. Thank you. Right, okay. We've covered a lot today, but maybe I could ask a question where we could maybe go into a bit more detail. Could you give us some examples of adjustments you've made previously?
can I take that one? Because I'm obviously someone living and breathing with a disability and also a hiring manager myself.
Yeah.
So with having Addison's disease, and although it is considered a disability, we don't like to think ourselves as disabled. It's that whole, it won't define me, I can do this, but just sometimes it doesn't happen. And you can be poorly, and that's when we would need to stress up dose and sadly sometimes be critically ill in hospital. And I found myself in this position. I had a really bad adrenal crisis, and I was off work. During that time, my manager was absolutely exceptional, and that's not unique. That's not just because I had a good manager. That is, like Maria said, our hiring managers are trained to the absolute optimum to be inclusive. And we had our occupational health working with me in order to be able to have that returned phase to work eventually. I was probably off for about 6 to 8 weeks, which isn't an incredibly long time, but for somebody like myself, it felt like forever. And I did come back too soon. And it was a case of, no, you need to step away. You know, you will come back when you're good and ready. We have your well-being at heart. And when I came back, it was reasonable adjustments, as in, you know, log on later, log off earlier, take the breaks when you require, just, you know, check in with people, let people know so they're not worried about me, especially with them being a lone worker, because all of a sudden in the pandemic you were, you know, working from home. But going forward, now we're more working in a hybrid environment. That is also reasonable adjustments for me to be able to predominantly work from home. And during this time, I've recruited a whole team and trained a whole team, and we deliver exceptionally well. My team is absolutely fantastic, and it still can be done. And it doesn't define me as a leader of a team, still working from home with that reasonable adjustment. Other companies may have just written me off and thought, how can you lead by example if you're not in the office? So that is just another example that they see me as Julianne Poynton, able to deliver, recruit, and get the best out of people and deliver land rights, not Julianne Poynton, she's got Addison's disease, she can't work in the office, therefore she's no good. So that's just one classic example. I have also put measures in place as well for team members that have returned to work after periods of sickness, or looking after also a parent that sadly was dying of cancer and terminally ill. Those reasonable adjustments that I, as a hiring manager, put in place so that particular team member could have that time in that awful time on the run up and post, you know, losing their parents. So real life examples for me and my team, and that's not unique. That is across the board.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Julianne.
I was also going to add, just to give you an overview of a variety of adjustments that we make. So they range for, you know, screen readers, different types of software for people with vision impairment or dyslexia, whatever reason you need it for.
Yeah.
But also not just the software itself, also the training that comes with it. We have different partners that come in and help us provide the assistance and the training that's needed. I myself, being severely deaf, I use captioning, but also we do have protocols for our meetings to really make sure that they are inclusive to begin with, to make sure that we check in with people before we start the meeting. So there's a number of ways in which we check. Also, for example, we have a very strong mental well-being program, and that's really helpful, where we have access to not just learning opportunities to learn about mental well-being and how we can take care of ourselves, but also we have, you know, counseling, coaching if we need to. And it's really important that that is also well publicized, because often there's still a stigma attached to mental health issues. And so we really try to attack that stigma by making those opportunities and support widely available. And yeah, so there's a variety of adjustments. We also make sure that our built environment is accessible. And, you know, we work quite closely with our facilities team to make sure that lifts are maintained, and all of that stuff. That our accessible toilets are actually working and they are properly fitted, and we do this on a regular basis every year.
Yeah.
So it kind of varies. It depends. Everything is delivered ad hoc for that individual. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Maria. And I'll just read a comment here. It says, just want to say thank you for all the detail in answer to my question. A very interesting session. After some bad experience in the past, it really does mean a lot to hear about a good, inclusive culture at HS2. So thank you for that. So looking at the time, we're almost coming to the hour mark. I think you've covered everything. You've covered everything about the variety and breadth of roles, how to apply, all the adjustments that's available. What else have I missed? You've really had a very good session today. So,
sorry to interrupt you. May I just also add, there was an individual that on the chat asked if there were any vacancies for secretarial. As Maria and Richard have said, we do have all the job boards and load your CV up, but what I would like to just put some flavour on that is, yes, we do, and they would look along the lines of acquisition administrators, project management administrators. Yes, we have the great apprenticeship programs as well, but yes, we are really wanting to focus and push as well the entry level. Whatever your skill set, you will bring something, I am sure, to HS2. So don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself in the word secretary. Look at some of those additional skill sets, because they just might have a different badge to it, but they're the kind of things that you need to be looking for. And absolutely, I have a lady in my team, and I've had a gentleman in my team that also have those skill sets that were previously more secretarial, that just do a fabulous job, and we couldn't go without them. To keep us on track.
Yeah.
And there was a pun there.
Yeah, on track, I get it.
Like to be comical as well.
Nice one. Even when Maria, like a pun of my own, when Maria was talking earlier on and talking about solving problems, I was going to say, how do we solve a problem like Maria? But I was trying to hold it back. Okay, so just before we finish, I'll just give anyone, is there anything else anyone would like to say about HS2, or anything we might not have covered? I think we've covered everything, but anything else from anyone else? No?
No,
Okay.
I will just reiterate that sometimes it's really, it can feel, I've been looking for jobs in the past before, and it can feel disheartening when you don't find exactly what you're looking for. But really, really do try to set yourself alerts, because that will really take out all of the stress for you having to keep checking in on the website all the time. And those are very, very useful tips. Look them up, rehearse your interview a little bit, give yourself the best chance, and have faith in the process, that the process of, shortlisting and being interviewed is fair. We really try so hard to give every candidate the best chance to bring the best self. So I would really encourage you to apply. We need more people. We need more diversity. And so please do apply for a job that HS2 will welcome you with open arms.
Fantastic. I mean, like you said, or like Ambrose said earlier, 34,000 roles to be filled. So, HS2 are actively hiring. You can also set up alerts on the Even Break website as well. There is a question here. They keep coming. Another one is, how long does the hiring process take? I don't know if it would be different for different job roles in HS2. Would you like to expand on that a bit, maybe?
I can a little bit as a hiring manager, if that helps. So From a job going live, there's usually a set period. It may well be a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever the manager deems is an appropriate time scale. From that, then there's usually a week or so where the shortlisting and the scoring of the shortlisting happens. Then there'll probably be, depending on how many applicants, maybe 1 to 3 weeks to set up interviews. And then what we always say is in the interview is, you know, we don't want to keep people hanging on. We know that this is quite daunting. So we aim to come back to people relatively quickly. I think usually within a week of seeing all candidates. From there was like a vetting process, which sounds scary, but it's not scary at all. It's the usual employment checks and, you know, your personal checks, rights to work in the UK, etc. And they used to take quite a while, but now they're coming back really quick, i.e. 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum. And then, of course, it would depend on the notice period of the individual. You know, I've waited for the right person 6 to 8 weeks. You know, if you've got that right individual, it does not matter whether you are in a long notice or not. It's the right person for the role. So I would say, add all of that up, it could be anywhere. I think the quickest I've done it from job advert to employee, literally day one, has been about 7 weeks. And that was super quick. The longest has probably been about 9 or 10, but that was allowing for some notice period as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Julianne. So, you know, it shows, you know, it can be as quick as 7 weeks or as long as the other end. So it varies, I think, is the answer to that question. Okay, so if we have missed any questions, you know, my apologies, but we'll send the answers to your email. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our session with HS2. Thank you very much for attending. Maria, Ambrose, Richard, and Julianne, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Toby, Carleen, and Orla, thank you very much for your help today. I do hope you all feel your questions have been answered, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Meet the Employer session. Don't forget to check out our other events on the Career Hive website. Please, Toby, one more time, if you could put the link for the Career Hive events page in the chat box. And everyone have a great day and see you later. Bye-bye.